to Suits and Sneakers, a series featuring sage advice and candid conversations with seasoned leaders from diverse backgrounds and styles. I'm your host, Carrie Tuttle. With my guests, we deep dive into the areas of team engagement, motivation, and effective performance management. Get ready to be inspired and transform your approach to leadership. Please like, subscribe, or follow to be notified when episodes are released. Let's get started. Kicking off season 4 of Suits and Sneakers Leadership Unfiltered, we are doing something a little different this time. I am turning the hosting duties over to my good friend, Michael Dargie. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Michael is founder of Make More Creative and the host of Rebel podcast. And so here we are. We're interviewing me, I guess.
So it means that you're in the hot seat today as the guest, Carrie. Welcome to Suits and Sneakers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. It's like the crossover episode everybody was asking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. So here we are. It's about time.
Yeah. So Carrie, why don't you introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, for people who haven't been listening in or don't know me, I definitely do want to introduce myself. So, hi, I'm Carrie Tuttle. I am founder of Team Mojo, and we are a firm that develops technical founders to grow their people and their profits sustainably. And what that means is really, for the last number of years, I've been an executive coach and a sales strategy advisor to founders who are looking for support in sales. I've led revenue teams across telecom, IT, engineering, industrial, and also in finance. I've also worked with Fortune 500 and small and mid-sized companies in Canada and the US. And my background is in marketing. I studied at the Haskins School of Business here in Calgary. So that's the foundation of where I started my career. And throughout that time, I've seen both exceptional leadership and some really damaging leadership up close. What I discovered when I became a leader at the age of 27 was a lot of people don't get any training, and I certainly didn't at first. I did get a little bit of mentorship along the way, which has been wonderful. So I see exactly how people struggle when they first start into leadership or change environments. Some of the leaders I work with are starting their own companies. So even if they were in leadership in a corporation, it can be very different when you're leading a team to kind of manifest your own vision and bring that to fruition.
Very nice. Now, your work attire, suits or sneakers?
Okay. So the truth is, when I'm out in the world, I'm such a girl. I love wearing a dress because you don't have to think. You just kind of throw it on. It's one piece, just like guys when they throw a suit on. And well, maybe they have to think a little bit more, but it's the woman's answer to a suit. But working from home, what I tend to wear is like a shirt like this, like a button-up shirt or a sweater. And then I like to be comfy, so jeans on the bottom.
Nice.
You know, party on the bottom, like comfy on the bottom, business up top.
Business up top. I love it. So what kind of technical founders do you work with?
That's a great question. I typically work with IT professionals, engineering, finance, law firms, cybersecurity, or product-led founders. And those founders typically have a revenue team between 2 people to 6 or even more sometimes. And the founder is still heavily involved in sales. They might be values driven and really care about their people and the impact that they're trying to have, but they've hit a plateau in their revenue and they really want growth. So what they experience is some frustration that the team just isn't getting it. And the founder is really still the best seller in the company.
Yeah. Wild. So yeah. What challenges do they experience in leading and growing their revenue teams?
Okay. So here's what usually happens. The founder starts their business. They have their idea for the service or the product that they want to launch in the marketplace. And then they're out there selling and networking and also closing business and also building the product and doing all the, like wearing all the hats, right? And so some of the challenges that they experience in growing revenue teams are an over reliance on the founder, so that that founder has sort of like an identity trap. They're stuck in the doing, and because the early revenue was built themselves, they struggle of um, letting go of being the closer specifically, especially on those really big deals. And in some cases, they should still be involved, but they lack trust in the team to be able to handle it on their own. And then what happens is the team lacks confidence because they haven't been forced to be self-sufficient. And so that revenue that they have feels a bit fragile, and it feels like they're on a hamster wheel, like they can't really get off. For the sales and marketing team themselves, they are misaligned. And so sales tends to say, oh, the leads are bad. I can't close this stuff. And marketing is saying, you know what? The sales team's not closing all of the stuff that we give them. So they're not really good at closing. And so we've got this finger pointing going on. And so imagine from a leadership perspective what that is like and how frustrating that is to hear that constantly going on and trying to figure out how to solve for it. So what we discover is that there's no shared definition of what is a qualified prospect? Like, what is our best client and who should we be going after? And so then also, they don't have a dashboard of metrics that they're both accountable for, both of those teams. So sadly, a lot of revenue problems are kind of leadership problems in disguise. And I don't mean that the leader is a bad leader, but they need some support with redefining their identity and their role versus their team members' role. And so that's what I help them work through. So, yeah, I'll pause there.
So let me ask you this. How can the founder set guidelines so they can step away from the details? Because they get sucked into the details all the time. Like it's hard to get out.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that a founder can do to set guidelines, and that way they can step away, is to define what good looks like. We need clarity in what they expect when they're setting the goal. And so actually first they have to communicate what the goals are, right? And some founders fail to do that or struggle to do that in a clear manner. Our people want to make us happy. They want to be successful at work. And if they don't know where they're headed and they don't know if they're on track, then they're just as frustrated as we are when we don't see the results. So defining what good looks like means having, for example, in a sales context, we would want to have clear stages for different deals. And like I mentioned before, clear definitions of what a qualified prospect looks like. And if we don't have them qualified, we can't move them forward in the process. We shouldn't be creating quotes, for example, for everybody who calls and requests a quote. We want to know that they're actually in a position to buy, that they're not just using our quote to negotiate against a competitor and never plan to give us the business. We would rather know that in advance. And so things like that, that qualification criteria can really help our team to be empowered to do their job better. And it takes less decision making for the founder, and our team gets to make their own decisions. So they become way more self-sufficient. They become more confident in their roles, and they start bringing us recommendations and solutions. The other thing that we can do to set clear guidelines is to have scorecards. We need to have measurements and metrics so that they know at some point, okay, I've been putting in all this effort. I have a lot of activity. I'm super busy, boss. Right. But if you're busy, is it the right kind of busy? Are you doing the right things to accomplish your goals? And so having a scorecard to define what is it we're looking for? What are the size of projects? How many projects? Revenue, of course, for sales. For marketing, it might be number of leads into the website or brand impressions, things like that. But we would want to know what is that engagement that we're getting from all of the messaging that we create. So having some service level agreements with each of the team members and the team collectively to measure what they're doing, the output of what they're doing. And actually, the first time you hire somebody, I always want to say, like, tell, show, and then let them teach you back. So that's kind of like a modality that is used a lot in education is, tell them what you want, then show them. So bring them to a meeting with you and have them shadow you and then have them teach it back to you. Or in a sales context, it's usually that you shadow them. So you flip the roles. They take the lead in having a discovery meeting with a prospect, and you then coach them afterwards. So in practice, what often happens though is that the founder can't help themselves, but they step in during the meeting and they want to do some of that selling for the rep. But you need to give them a little bit of room to fail, to get messy and make mistakes and find their own way of talking about the product or service. So if you're going to set guardrails, it has to be here's what to say, here's what not to say. And maybe it's a checklist rather than a script. So for both revenue teams, you want to have leading indicators that you're measuring along the way and support them in those early meetings because then you can coach them. And PS, most founders forget to make time for coaching their team because again, you're running so fast and I get it. You have so many hats that you're wearing and there's so many details to keep track of in the business, but it's really, really important to make the time.
So, what would a founder experience with your style of coaching?
Yeah, so I think someone would experience a reflective nature, not prescriptive. I'm not trying to give everybody the answer, but I give tools. I ask a lot of questions to help the founder discover more about themselves and how they're guiding their team and maybe what's missing, right? Like a lot of things that I notice are founders forget to celebrate all the milestones, even the little wins, like every day that a team member is doing something differently. For example, they're preparing more for their meeting, or they come up with options for the client that are like solution based. And they're really thinking about the client's goals, taking it to the next level down to what does the client's client need? That is really cool stuff. Celebrate that, compliment the team. And so I encourage my clients to do that. um, and I think what you would also experience is noticing patterns. So I will talk about the tactics that we can use in leading our team more effectively, but at the same time, looking for patterns of where things might be falling apart. And an example is I have a client I've been working with for a while who their sales team kept losing deals right at the end, right at the finish line. Like everything was great from initial reach out. They get lots of leads. They qualify those leads pretty effectively. And then they have a deep discovery. And then once it gets to the quote phase, it was just like, pew, dropping off. And so we went through and discovered that their pricing really needed an overhaul. And once that happened, it's been a more consistent process for the salespeople. And also then we're controlling for that variable. Then we can move on to, okay, pricing is consistent. There's a system. Now we can look at other aspects like how are you closing the deal? Are you negotiating effectively? Or what is the way that the leader is also supporting that process? Kind of having that executive sponsorship. So therein lies my approach is sort of systematic, like looking at the different pieces of the puzzle to try and unpack it and figure out which one of them is affecting the outcome. The other thing I would say is because I ask a lot of questions, some of them are uncomfortable, let's be honest. And my focus is really on building the founder's emotional intelligence along the way so that they become more self-aware and better able to manage the relationships around them. The structure of my coaching style, I'll share also, is a bit of a combination. Sometimes it's one-on-one with the founder. In a lot of cases, it's a team collaboration approach. And we will look at different clients, dissect how they're approaching each client, and bringing that sales and marketing team together, like in workshop format. So that is what people can experience with my coaching style.
How would people describe your leadership style?
Ooh, I would say I'm collaborative first. I do want to get buy-in and get my team to own it. So I will ask my team to own their deadlines, for example. I was just working on a project with my assistant on the YouTube channel. And so asked for both her ideas as well as what deadline she feels is realistic for all of the tasks that are on the project list. So I like to be collaborative and let people own their own deadlines, own their own tasks. And then I, of course, give guidance, right? Let them give some suggestions. And then, okay, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? So that's kind of how I try and lead. And I would say one of the things, I'll tell you one of the things I've been learning over the years and that I wish I knew when I was a lot younger, which is something we always talk about on this podcast,
Yeah.
is to not wait for the tough conversations, to have those. And also, so the tough conversations involve giving clarity, and clarity is kindness. The
Love that.
more clear you can be, the more people know whether they're succeeding or not succeeding. And at the end of the day, I think we all want to please our boss and please our clients, right? As business owners, our boss is our client. And if they're not clear on the feedback of what they like, what they don't like, where we maybe disappointed them, then we don't know. We can't read people's minds. So we can't expect our staff to read our mind either.
What's the favorite part of your role? Like, what do you just love about what you do?
Oh, okay. So what I love this question. Thank you for asking this, because what lights me up is when I see a founder comes to me, or even in a leadership role, somebody as a leader comes to me and they're feeling stuck and they're feeling frustrated and like there's a brick wall in their way. And through our coaching sessions and then the actions that they take between the coaching, because they have to implement what we talk about, uh, I see them breaking down those walls and I feel them getting really excited again about their business, and they start hitting their stride and their team is like just knocking it out of the park. That's when they're able to step back from selling, letting their team really gel and start to take ownership. So it starts to become the culture, ownership and accountability. And they're coming to the boss saying, "Hey, I have an idea. Let's do something really innovative here." That makes me excited, because that's when leaders realize that they don't have to grind to grow necessarily, and also that they're not alone on their journey. And so it feels like we're partners in what they're trying to build. I want to add one more thing about something I've learned, and that is to celebrate more. Celebrate in big ways, in small ways, lots of thank yous, lots of gratitude, handwritten notes, email, emojis, whatever it takes to show the team that you appreciate them. Celebrate privately, celebrate publicly, do all of those things, because we seriously cannot celebrate too much. So, yeah.
Love it. All right. So, I mean, you've answered this a little bit, but I think that there's a different answer lying here somewhere. But what advice would you give to your younger self taking on your first leadership role?
Okay. Okay. So when I was younger, I thought I had to have all the answers and know everything. And I think as I've aged,
So gracefully.
uh, thank you. As I've matured, let's say that. I hope I've matured. I believe that I've learned I really need to have the right questions, not the right answers. And yeah,
That's awesome.
questions are more powerful, and I don't have to know all the answers. In fact, some of the young people I hire have way more creative ideas. They're way more tapped into all the technology and different ways of thinking than I am, because I've just found what works for me and then I kind of keep going. And as much as I try to continue to work on myself and continue to develop, we still get into habits. So, yeah.
Let's close up with this question.
Okay.
What, Carrie Tuttle, are you working on now that you'd like your listeners to know about?
Well, a couple of things. So I'm working on an app. I've found that for the leaders I'm working with, I almost always give them some kind of reflection at some point in our journey together. And so it's not necessarily every week or every couple of weeks when we get together, but regularly. And they love it and they value it. So I am creating an app to help support that. Yes. So that's one of the things I'm
Amazing.
working on. Yeah. And I'm excited about it. I'm not an IT professional myself, but in this day and age, we can definitely do that. And the other thing that supports our earlier conversation about delegating is I've created a workbook. It's very simple, and that helps give a framework to leaders who are struggling with how to articulate their expectations and then delegate appropriately. So I have a free download. I will share it in the show notes, and that's my gift to the whole community. So
Love it. Carrie,
that's
this has
it.
been time well spent. Thank you so much for doing a crossover episode on Suits and Sneakers featuring Carrie Tuttle.
Well, thank you so much for being my host, Michael.
Anytime.
We're glad you joined us for Suits and Sneakers. If you want to be an expert guest, look for the link in the show notes. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to be notified of future episodes.